show you how to build a scene really quickly. So um, you basically are just going to select the clips that you want and drag them down into the right locations. Um, you can decide if you want to do just part of a clip or all of the clip. Like if I want to have all this clip here, I can bring it down, and maybe I'll add this bird's eye view next to it. But maybe I decide I need to trim out. This whole scene is really long, and there's some outtakes here. So I might need to trim this down, which you can always do by adding or shrinking it down this way on the front end and the back end, however you want. So it creates a nice transition. And then speaking of transitions, if you want to have those nice transitions where things fade to black or do a dissolve, you're going to go over here to transitions. And there's a whole bunch to choose from. I want you guys to keep it simple, especially for the final movie. We don't want to use a bunch of different fancy stuff. So we want to just maybe stick with fade to color or cross dissolve. There's also some of the lights, lens flare ones, the light noise that are kind of nice. Think of what you see in movies. You don't want to have a bunch of things like this that are all different, because that would make the movie not really feel like it fits together. For this little mini project, you can play around with whatever you'd like just to get a feel for how things work. So if I use, let's say, a simple cross dissolve, I'm essentially just going to drag it and put it between the two clips. If you get this warning, it usually means the clips are really short and it's going to cut it off. If that's okay, you can say create transition, you can look at it. And if it works for you, it doesn't cut off dialogue or seem funky, then that's okay. Like, that was fine. So that's how you create a transition. Other things you can do are, if you go to sound here, there's a whole bunch of sound effects. So they're just like with iMovie, you have folders and folders of different sound effects. I would say Final Cut has a lot more. And you can also always search things. Like if I want to do maybe Adrian is snoring, I can look for a snore.
Hand in the cue to the front, please. Hand in the cue to the front.
Sorry about that. But I could always add a little snoring soundtrack to this. And I can see how this sounds. And if the sound competes, if the one on the clip is too loud and you want to shrink it down, you can always go below here and you can decide that you're going to lower or raise up the volume, so you can play with volume a little bit. So that's how you add sound and transitions. You also, if you need to do some video effects, like if you want this video footage to look a certain way, like if you want it to have a really dreamlike quality, there's a bunch of different effects here to look at. Same thing with the transitions though. On our final movie, we don't want to go crazy. We wouldn't want to have one group use this newsprint for their scene, another group use something else. It just wouldn't be cohesive. So keep it really simple, or really don't do much of this at all unless it's really specific, like you want to have a dreamlike quality for a dream scene. You might play with that, but I would definitely check in before you go crazy with any of these things. But essentially what you would do is you would just, whatever you wanted to use, you would just drag it on top of the clip and it would change the feel of that clip. Remember, everything that you don't like, you can always do Command Z and undo it. So that's pretty much it. So you would be adding these clips together with whatever sound and transitions. Oh, and then you also need to add text. So you would look for a scene, and let's say you wanted to do, this will show you how you can basically use them. So let's say I wanted to do, let me just do this echo here or something, or energetic. I would just basically drag this over, and then when I double click, it's going to allow me to type onto it, and you could type long shot. And that's our, and you can see the way it plays through. And if you think that's in the way of the action, you could always do another one that's in the lower right or the lower left. Think about how it works with video. You can also always make this, if you want it to be a little bit longer, this will just hang on the scene for longer, so you can play with that. Move this around. Maybe you want it to start more at the end of the scene. But you're going to be adding text labels for all of your different clips. So think about text labels, arrangement, and see if you can put together a scene using those. I'm going to show you one more trick that I think is really handy. That is you have the arrow tool for select, but you can also use these other ones for different techniques. And I think the position one is handy because if you ever just want to move things out of the way, give them more space between, and actually create a block of space between, like if you wanted there to be a longer fade to black, you could use that. It also can just help with arrangement. The other thing that's really handy is the blade tool. And this tool right here allows you to actually trim a clip into two separate ones. You can take one clip and make it two. So if I look at this scene, there's a part right in here where Maya and Roz stop and have a conversation. Let's say I actually wanted to cut in on that conversation. I had a closer up shot. So what I could do is at this point right here, I could choose blade. I could come to this point where they start talking, and I can then separate this. And now I have two separate scenes. See if you can see it if I stretch it out a little bit. I basically have two separate clips right here that I can then insert a third clip in between those things. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward, and this is going to be able to get you started. I really encourage you all to experiment and use each other as a resource. There are multiple ways of doing a lot of things. So the more the more we're curious and we look around and try to find things on our own, the more we're going to learn about Final Cut. Also, if you get hung up on something, do a quick YouTube search to see what kind of tutorial is available for a different technique, and I bet you'll find a lot of stuff out there as well. Okay, hope this helps. Thanks.